Rushed back from the soccer game.
I'm on a locale. It's like a location
It's
shooting
on
again
location. We
now.
need a location breakdown.
Yes, I'm in State College, Pennsylvania. Recording. Well, I was gonna say late at night, but I mean, I guess for me,
This is a little early, actually. Oh wait,
for,
yeah. What time is it there?
it's only 8:30 here, but I've been up since 2:30 this morning. So
Fair.
yeah, Mama's crashing.
You're on the descent. I feel it. I feel it. Well,
So
yes.
I think I'm going to be different as far as your thoughts on House of the Dragon. And I'm
Interesting.
actually kind of shocked that you feel or possibly feel the way you feel having just binged Game of Thrones.
I
And
don't.
how?
My raw emotion from the text that I sent last night, I have kind of calmed down from that.
Okay. You were wanting
But
destruction, death, fighting scenes, blow
yes,
up.
but I feel like it's a little bit more complex than that. I'm not just like I need a Michael Bay thing. I need explosions. Like I I am not someone that will watch. I enjoyed Andor. I'll put it that way. Andor
Right.
was very dialogue heavy, a lot of world building, story building. I loved Andor. I thought this season was really good, but I felt like there was a lot of not a lot of nothing, but while things were progressing,
Okay.
the story wasn't progressing, and I feel like more than anything, we were led to believe it was going to be one way, and it very much wasn't. The season ends with Luke dying, Rhaenyra saying, "I want Aegon's head." Like that's how it ends. Season starts, we got blood and cheese. It wasn't as graphic as we thought, yada yada yada, but it
Die.
was like
Right.
things were happening. I was like, okay, like a son for a son. So like we're even now, but now tensions have risen even more. So it's like we're waiting for the pot to boil over. And it felt like for the most part, every episode was next week is the episode. Next week is the episode. And to be fair, they did give us the Battle of Rook's Rest. But I just there was a lot of personal development, but after a while, I just felt like with Rhaenyra and stuff like that, I expected more. I think it was a good season, but and maybe this goes back on me expect kind of the way you felt about Deadpool, how you expected it, thought it would like reset certain things.
Sure.
Maybe they never said it, but I went into it thinking this was just going to be blood and guts everywhere,
Sure.
and it wasn't. So maybe that's on me.
No, and I get that. I get that because that's kind of like I said, that's how I felt. That was my thoughts about going into Deadpool was I understood
Yeah,
that that was a lot of my perceptions and my expectations, and
right.
just because my expectations weren't met didn't make it necessarily a bad movie. And again, it's not that I didn't. For people that think I hated the movie, I did not hate the movie. Like I did not hate the movie,
Yeah.
but I kind of go back to like I said, you have just binged you recently I shouldn't just, but you recently binged Game of Thrones. You also binged House of Dragon to catch up to all of this that was going to start this year.
Yes.
You know the first couple of seasons of Game of Thrones, it was very exposition heavy.
Very true.
It
Very
was
true.
very there wasn't a lot of battle. There might have been an occasional fight scene or something that really happened, but it there wasn't actually a lot of
Yeah.
it. And then the complaint, and I'm not saying this is your complaint, but a lot of people complained that towards the end of Game of Thrones, they rushed through timelines, like they rushed the story along. Whereas now they didn't, they actually kind of showed like, hey, things got to a real heightened, like almost to a fever pitch with Luke dying, and then you had blood and cheese, and things were like everybody around it kind of, I think that's kind of why Allison kind of did what she did at the end of this episode. was things were spinning wildly out of control. And this was some people's last ditch efforts to kind of like watching World War I and watching the dominoes fall and thinking at some point somebody's got to pull all this back before the world implodes. And definitely season 3, the world is going to implode. I mean, like it just, those dominoes have started to fall. I know that they had this conversation, and I know that between Allison and Rhaenyra had this conversation, but you don't have to not have read the books to understand. Again, being able to put things together, you know, the dragons are going to disappear, especially if you've watched Game of Thrones. You know things are going to hell, or else if it was so easily wrapped up by them two having a conversation, season 3 would be it.
Right.
And we know season 3 isn't
Right.
going to be it. We know season 3, it's actually going to come, it's actually going to get worse, and there's going to be so many more battles. And I think this season was kind of the, we see where this is heading. We don't really, there were people in it like, we don't really want it to go this way. We're kind of powerless to stop it going this way. There's things that are happening with people, like Aemond is just wildly out of control, spinning out of control to the point. It's like, what's he gonna do with Helena? Like pull her out of the castle and slap her onto the
Yeah, I was very curious, and I think again, it sounded like you're saying, what was he going to do? And I think that shows how unhinged he's gotten. That
Yes.
I don't even think he knew what he was going to do.
Mm-mm.
But it was one of those, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it.
Right.
Step 1,
Get on
grab
the dragon.
Helena, drag her down the stairs. Step 2, what's step 2? I don't know.
I haven't gotten that far yet. Like honestly,
Right.
I
We're
didn't
gonna
think I'd make
super
it down the
glue her
stairs with her.
hands to the dragon.
Honestly, I hadn't got that far in my plan yet. Like
Right. Like, because I was thinking the same thing as I'm watching him. Be like, you have to go. We need your assistance. And he like grabbed her arm. And my immediate thought was, how are you going to force
right.
her? You can drag her down the stairs, but like, what are you going to do? Like, I guess the only option is to threaten her kids. I feel like that's the only thing he could have done, and maybe he would have.
I guess
But I
possibly.
remember thinking like, you're just gonna throw her on the dragon and force
Yeah.
her to,
like my brother.
yeah.
Yeah, like my brother in Christ. What are we doing with this plan? Like, are we
Right.
once you got her even out of the door, are you gonna be like, now I've got to like walk her out? Like, come on, we're
Yeah.
getting the dragons.
You put this armor on. You better put this armor on.
No. So
Right.
yeah, I think it's a lot. I think it was interesting in the fact that I appreciate, because like I was one of those people that I thought possibly they would get into. I was actually kind of worried that they were going to do the Battle of the Gullet and rush through it with, I mean, again, it's not spoilers. There are going to be people that I can't, if you don't think anybody's gonna die on House of Dragon, I mean, like, then I don't know what to tell you. I was worried that they would do that and rush through it and us be left with that as the season finale cliffhanger. And I thought, as much as I want to see that, which I mean, that sounds really sick. I can't wait for these people. I can't wait for these deaths. I'm glad they didn't. So they didn't rush through the battle and then it'd be like, okay, we zoom through that, because especially with the Battle of the Gullet, with it going so badly for both sides, I would have hated to have had it watered down to one episode.
Okay, so that's fair. So I think maybe I should revise my statement, because I know a lot of people this morning and last night were really upset and they said the season was terrible. I'm not saying that the season was bad. I thoroughly enjoyed the season. I had made my comments that I understood why certain characters in Rhaenyra's council were kind of like, we like, maybe we're on the wrong side because nothing's happening here. But I still enjoyed the episode and the season as a whole.
Sure.
I think what got me was the season finale, and I didn't hate it. I think one person was like, it was a good episode, but a terrible finale. I know one person said that last episode with Rhaenyra daring Vagar and Ament to come over there and the dragons yelling slurs at the other dragon. That should have been the season finale closing shot, and last episode should have been the season premiere. I think all of those are good points. I think for
That's
me,
fair.
I heard about the Battle of the Gullet,
And you
and
wanted to see it.
so I wanted to see it, and I thought that that's what this episode was going to be. And then about halfway through, I paused it and I'm like, okay, so is this battle going to be the last 45 minutes? And
Mhm.
then I
Yeah.
forgot what happened after that. And I paused it again. And I saw there was 19 minutes left. And I was like, if you MFers put this, like at this point, the battle can't happen.
Right. Exactly
And
right.
then it kept going and then it ended. So, yeah, my immediate text to you was not that the episode was
Sure.
bad, but it was more like I had convinced myself because they'd been taught Twitter, TikTok, and even the show was like the gullet this, the gullet
Right.
that. And then people on TikTok are at the Battle of the Gullet. So I was like, okay, so season finale,
Here
blood
we
and guts,
go.
here we
Right.
go. And it wasn't. So that's what kind of pissed me off. But taking a step back, I do not think it was a bad episode. And like you said, which kind of goes into my whole MCU fans are never happy. We complain that they rushed the last season. This season drags it out. I do wish we had had like one more big battle, but it's not to say this season was completely dry.
Right.
We had the Battle of Rook's Rest. We had Arik versus Eric. We had, I feel like there was something else that was like a pretty decent fight scene. So we got our fix,
Yes, I mean,
but
you did have the dragons cook
yeah,
a
they
bunch of
barbecued
people
the king. That was
last.
a big deal. But I think
Well, I'm
major
talking about the
plot
dragon
points.
riders when they were picked. I mean, like that
Oh,
was
that
that
too,
was just
yeah.
last
The
week, like
the
that
the
was
buffet of the dragons, not the dance of
right.
the dragons. That was the buffet of the dragons.
Right.
I thought that was really good. So yeah, I don't want people to see this video and comment, "Oh, you just hate the season." Like again, I don't need just a Michael Bay of
Right.
explosions and no story. I did enjoy the season, but the way the first season ended, I guess I thought we'd get more of what the third season is
Right.
going to be in the second season.
Do you think it had anything to do with there only being 8 episodes this season and not 10?
I think so. I think that definitely plays into it. I also wanted to think back, and I know that they continued filming during the writer's strike because I think them and Rings of Power, which I cannot
Because
wait
yeah, it's
for,
UK.
that yeah, they were allowed to keep filming. But I think that might have played a role into it. Maybe I know they've been filming for a few years, so I don't know if COVID affected some things. I don't know exactly, but I do think those probably did play a role in it. Um, but I think people being disappointed in what, like myself, what we thought the finale would be. I think a lot of people's immediate reactions. I saw one guy say this finale was worse. This season was bad, and the finale was worse than the last episode of Game of Thrones. And I thought, see, this is where we need to reel it in
Right.
because
Right.
y'all are just shooting from the hip with your eyes
Right.
closed.
The
Like,
hyperbole is like off the charts here. Like
yeah,
again, you were
and I don't want to
mad.
be put within that group, so that's why I'm trying to like.
Right. No, I completely understand because like I just feel like a lot of people were like I did see a lot of people's comments as far as people like this was the worst. I didn't saw a lot of people in the comments that were like you all again going back to you hated how they rushed Game of Thrones. Now in like if you watch the first few seasons of Game of Thrones, it was a lot of talking. It was a lot of political machinations that went into who's on what side, where are we going, do we really want this to fall apart? This is falling apart. Like, Ned's head, spoilers, cut off in the first season, and then like in the second season, it's you're moving towards war, but you're not there yet. I mean, like it's, and I'm really glad. I'm hoping because I can't predict. I have no idea how season 3 is going to be. I'm hoping they spend, at least if they start right off with the Battle of the Gullet, then you can probably devote an entire episode to it. I would hate to stretch it out and then like if they only decide to do 4 seasons of it and there's so many more battles. that happen throughout the entire, I mean, again, it is like World War I happening throughout this land.
They
Is
did say
everybody.
season 3 is all about war. Like they came out today and said that.
Yeah, I mean, it, because it is. This season was very much people going like, all right, we're doing this and things are really being done out of emotion, but we really have to understand what happens once we tip that, like we finally, and I think as much as I do not like him, still Kristen Cole was kind of like,
I hated so much that what he said made sense. God, that one got me because I'm sitting there and like him kind of being the voice of reason and kind of like
yes,
speaking from the heart.
as
I'm
the
like,
audience, yes.
y'all gave this guy that depth like now because I've been waiting on this man to die for so long, and now you're over here and he's just sitting there looking off into the distance, talking about how like men are just crushed under the dragon's feet. This war belongs to the dragons, and I'm like,
This
when the worst person you know makes a good point, I'm just like, oh,
exactly
because he
right.
was dead on, and I'm like, I can't even hate. Like every time I see you, I go, but he finished that speech, that dialogue, and I was like, well, can't I?
It's
Hey,
yeah,
he's got a point.
it's the one gif of the basketball player was like,
Yeah, he's just that
dude,
was 100% me because as soon as I saw his face, I'm like, man, because he wasn't in the last episode at all.
right.
So I saw his face, and I'm like, here we go, back with the BS.
Right.
And then that scene ended, and I'm like, I gotta take a walk because
Which I
I
thought was
sympathize
great.
with this guy.
Which was great because it shows that every all the rest of the players have been so far removed from the battlefront.
Yeah.
Everybody else is making these chess moves on like, oh, we're going to take this place and we need this army and we need these people to side with us. And you got Eamon who's just burning everything that he can because his feelings get hurt. But like you have all these people that are far removed from, again, the battlefront, and he's down there and now has witnessed, oh, this is what is going to happen. Like, this isn't even like, we're nothing when it comes to this battlefield. Like, we're men here fighting, but ultimately, when these dragons come in, swoop down, it's game over, and it doesn't matter what
It's
side
game
you're on.
over for everyone. Like, I think he saw that with his own men, and then he watched the Prince Regent
Get burned by his own brother.
burn the king, his brother. Like
Right.
that whole battle. What was it we were saying about Civil War? It deromanced
Yes.
the war to him. It made it real, even though he had been in battles before. But seeing how the dragons are, like you said previously, essentially a bunch of nuclear bombs, it made it raw and real. And he is realizing that, like Allison, he's kind of in over his head. And are there really any winners? And it just so happens that we all hate him. But I was legitimately sitting there like, man,
Damn. Made a
it's a
good
good
point.
point.
Now, the person's speech that, or I loved Alan's speech to his father, Corlys. But Corlys,
Oh,
it was
that one, woo.
that one when he, I forgot what his exact words were, but when he started to walk away, I forgot what he said to Alan, and he started to walk away, and Alan stopped, and I thought, and I just turned to my kid and I thought, he's thinking, okay, you want to do this? Let's
Yeah,
do
we're gonna do
this.
this. And then he tried to dismiss him. Like once he got into it, he was like, I said you're dismissed. I'm like, no, no, you're in it now. Like
Right.
you asked for this. And he's talking about selling fish or trying to decide like what fish he could get and saving his copper. And then your son came by with a fur coat. I'm like, that's what you're shaving your head because you hate that white hair because all that is a reminder that
He let you starve.
he let you starve to protect his own dignity, his own honor, his own house. Oh man,
See,
that
that's
one.
And that's what
Yeah.
that's the reason like I enjoy going over this, because you do start to think, okay, we didn't get the battles, but there are some of those things said that the conversation between Damon and Rhaenyra at the
Yeah,
castle.
that
I
was good.
mean,
There was a
when
lot of good dialogue.
when she basically said, "You ever leave me again?"
The conversation between Helena and Aemon. Like
Oh,
you look at the face to face, like the 2-on-2 or 1-on-1, I guess, conversations between multiple characters in this one episode. I don't
so good.
understand how people can rationally, again, we may have not been it may not have been the finale we expected, but you
Right.
can't sit here and look me in my face and tell me
That
that you
wasn't some
thought
of
this
the
was
best dialogue you've ever heard.
exactly. This was not a terrible episode. This wasn't worse than the season finale of House of the Dragon. Like, y'all have to stop with that because if you actually look at the writing, the character development, the character dialogue between these characters, Allison and Rhaenyra, I mean, honestly, like multiple conversations between a bunch of characters who have had a lot of growth or depth added this season. Again, while there wasn't blood and guts,
Right.
this was a good season finale that sets us up for season three. I still, not that I stand by the text I sent, and I guess I haven't really
I
said,
get
I
it.
said, WTF was that episode?
Right.
Because I went to the soccer game, I rushed home, I'm like, let's
Right.
go, season finale. I haven't even opened Twitter, like,
Right.
let's get into it. And then it ended, and I'm like,
Huh.
nobody died? Like,
Right.
what?
It
But
was
no,
very much as, but it was like it wasn't very much, because you got to think of the way like episode 9 for Game of Thrones was always the big one, and then 10 was always Where's the Dust, and I think it was kind of taking season 2 and having the deep conversations that needed to be had in order to set up. It's like people are like, well, all it was a setup for season 3. Okay, it's like, okay, well, didn't you never watch Game of Thrones? That's all episode 10s ever were setups for the new season. Like that, it was handling Where the Dust Settles and moving into
I
season
think
the
they
new
just wanted
season.
at least one person to die, I think is like what the main
Right. And the
gripe
thing
would
is,
be. No one's actually said it, but I think that's what it was. Nobody
which is
died.
true, but it's like you don't want like the way some of these main characters die, you don't want that fast forward. And I wish when people finally do see it, because like even the conversation between Jacaerys and Bela, when she was basically like, I am so tired of your moping. You're sitting here acting sulky and you're dishonest. The only way you bring
I
dishonor.
kind of agreed though. I mean, Jace has gone through it. He deserves
Oh
to
no,
mope in.
I get it. I get it. But she was like, the only like you
But she kept it
it
real with him.
yeah, she said the only reason this sucks is because you say it sucks and you make it
Yeah,
suck. Like it doesn't have to like yeah, we all knew, but who you like you still are the son of the queen right now.
right.
Like get over your feelings. We got it. You don't like it. You're not happy with Ulf putting his feet on the
I
table.
was gonna say I would have beheaded off. Like I realize it sucks because like in this situation they're in, like he knows that he got brought to Dragonstone because Rhaenyra's desperate. So he has a bit of leverage.
Right.
But one thing I did think about multiple times during the season, people have undermined Rhaenyra by either going behind her back or somewhat just disrespecting her to her face. And I know she slapped that one guy and was like, "It's my fault for making you forget to fear me" or something like that. And I feel like it was a decision made by the writers, or maybe it wasn't. But multiple times this season, I feel like people on her council have kind of disrespected her, and I couldn't help but think a lot of other people that are vying for the throne would not have put up with this. And I'm
Oh.
not saying that every now and then you gotta behead
Well,
a person,
but wait a
but
minute. Doesn't that then go into proving her point with Allison when she had that conversation? She was like, you understand there you I can't just he just can't get off the throne and me take over. I have to behead your
yeah,
son in front of people. Like
yeah,
there's this isn't just oh and oh we were wrong, here's the throne. She's like, I have to cut his head off in front
yeah.
of
And
people.
yes, and she was spot on, which
Right.
made it interesting that to Alicent telling a mother that I have to behead your child, she could like get to that point so easily, but on your own counsel, you are shocked that these people are continually disrespecting you throughout the season because you're letting them get away with it on
Right.
the council in the
Right.
hallway. Dude's got his feet up on the table. Like, and I know you slapped the dude, but I mean, it was in front of the servants. Like, no, that should have happened in front of the council. Like, sometimes you just got to remind people. And I felt like Rhaenyra struggled to do that. And I realized she was in an interesting position. But I look back at the different leaders and kings throughout House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, and it's like, no, sometimes someone's head has to roll
Well, I mean,
just a bit.
that's right, which is why like that Alfred Broom goes to Damon and says,
Yeah, we need a king. It like
and if you noticed when everybody bent the
he
knee,
took off.
he dipped. Keep an eye on him. Like keep an eye on it. There are no there is there are there are some people within the story that are going to, there's no clear cuts, like they will, whichever way they feel the tide is shifting, go with that. I mean, it's sometimes very much to the detriment of whatever battle's going on. And it's that's the reason I'm like, yeah, I know people just like don't, again, it's like I'm not talking about you, don't, but it's like people who you saw online like just crapping it out. And I'm like, again, you felt like, again, Game of Thrones, you felt like, okay, well, when are we, like, maybe it was because there were more boobies and so people were overwhelmed.
Be honest with you, it does kind of help offset some of the slower parts.
So it's like, okay, I know you got,
We
I know
saw
you
we
didn't
saw Daenerys's backside, and I was like, we're getting early
almost.
season Daenerys, and then she's gone.
So it's like I get it, but like we're talking about is when you start going through these conversations that were had just in this one episode. This one episode, you had, I mean, just like I said, Bela and Jacaerys. You had, I mean, just even Rhaenyra sitting there with like trying, instead of having a council meeting, decides to have a bastardized family supper
Right.
with
The one drop
Adam.
Targaryen supper with everybody, and all, like there was a lot of good things. What it reminds me of, and this is something I've said about the MCU for a while. It's I realized this. I realized I was part of the problem, and so I stopped complaining. When we were getting a couple MCU movies, like one or two movies a year, and then they gave us Agents of Shield, but that one kind of veered off. But we were getting 1 to 2 movies a year, and that was it. We complained so much. We need more content. There are so many stories. Give us
Sure.
more content. Give us shows. We need more. Then they started giving us more movies, more shows in one calendar year, and we were happy. And then they started making more calendar movies and shows in one calendar year. Then we got to a tipping point, and we're like, we want quantity over quality. You guys are just giving us way too much in a calendar year. Take your time, spread it out.
Right.
You don't need to give everyone a show. And I remember I was talking to someone about that, and I realized I have now done a 180 on everything I was complaining about a few years ago. And I was like, well, maybe
Hmm.
we're the problem. Not to say the MCU is like flawless, but they were listening to us. And then we reached the point where now we're like, okay, you're giving us way too much at one time. It's oversaturated. It's not quality. You guys need to cut back, give us less shows, less movies in a calendar year.
Right.
Just focus on making good movies and make sure they all connect. And then they're going to be like, okay, and then they're going to go back to that. And then in 4 or 5 years, we're going to be like, you're telling me we got to wait
Yeah.
a whole year because I want to get. So then when I look at this, we complained. I know you didn't say it was as bad as everyone said, but people complained how bad, how rushed the last seasons of Game of Thrones were and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And now when they give us a season where it's a lot of build up and a lot of dialogue to set up everything else, here we are complaining that it was too slow.
Right.
Sometimes we need to look in the mirror and we are the problem.
Like I said, it's just, it was I could understand people's frustration in watching this season because I know they were wanting like boom baby, like this is going to be battle nonstop, like as soon as the throne is taken and kids start dying, woo, it is just on. I'm appreciating the fact that they're not just blowing through these conflicts that are to come,
Yeah.
because they are huge, and I think possibly they want the to for you to understand, like, because I think to me it's like if you were to start rushing through and you were to start doing battles and you were to start killing people left and right, they lose
Wouldn't
their
mean as
impact.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they lose their impact. And like you see, even when Damon touches the weirwood tree and he has the visions of everything that's to come, th- you seeing that dragon laying there dead, that should be jarring to you. Like that is what we're in for, is these huge godlike beasts. They're going to be taken down through something that right now they did a good job, because that conversation between Alicent and Rhaenyra is not in the book, which again, I'm
Neither
so
other
glad.
conversations were, right?
Right, exactly. Which I think is so good. Actually, I'm a fan of everything that they're adding to it, because I'm like, to me, it makes it more interesting to think, okay, well, everything that does happen, look what they were trying to stop. Like there was things where they were like if that conversation really had happened, like how much would that change the fact that now you know that everything still is destroyed in the end? That you had
Yeah.
them two standing there going, okay, well, you come here in 3 days and we'll do this, and I'm willing to sacrifice a son for this, just because my other son is out of control, and now he's threatening my daughter, and they're possibly getting my other son with his dragon. And but like she sees these things spinning out of control, and it's like you just kind of you're led to believe like, okay, well, if they're having this conversation, like, oh, okay, like we can pull this back. And the fact that it's not going to. So what goes so terribly wrong between that conversation and where we're going to start here
Yeah. No, I
on?
think that's a very good way to look at it. And I think if people take a step back from their initial reactions, I think, yes, you can understand why you feel the way you feel. And I think you made a lot of good points. I think
I get it though.
what I expected, and
Was
again, I'll have to
drama.
go back and listen to the interviews because there was a chance that they never actually said it was going to be what I thought it was. And that
Sure,
was just
sure.
me. I, in my head, heard them say it's going to be blood, guts, and fire everywhere. And
Oh,
when I didn't get it, I was like, you lied to me. And I'm like, we never said that.
yeah, I would actually have to, because, I don't know. It would be curious to see is if they alluded to a, if people, and I can also say, as somebody who's read the books, maybe it is possibly people like me who have read it, who know the big things that are coming, and might be unconsciously or unaware that we might be ramping people up like, oh man, this Battle of the Gull is going to be great. And then they don't do it. And you're like us who have read the books, it's like to us it's no big deal, or I shouldn't speak for everybody who's read it, but like for me it's no big deal because I know they have to get to it. So
Right.
but for you to only hear it, secondhand, and hear the things that are coming and think, well, why haven't we gotten to it yet?
Right.
Like if
I think
all
that's a
this stuff is
lot
going
of
to happen,
people.
yeah,
Yes.
if all this stuff is going to happen, like why hasn't it happened yet? And
We had
so
8 whole episodes and you're telling me we couldn't get to it. Yeah.
right.
I think
So
that's valid. That's kind of where I think that's where I ended up at because I heard about it. People were
right,
like, "Oh, you thought Rook's Rest was bad? Just wait till Battle of the Gullet." And
right,
they start talking. They've been talking about the Gullet and the blockade. You see the
right,
people in this city starving. So you're like, "Oh, that blockade battle is going to happen like any day now."
right.
And then
And
it
then it doesn't.
didn't. So, that's where my
And I get
initial.
it, and that's fair, and that's so I think, like I said, I think people like me play a part in that, because we're like, ooh, but I think like we don't come at it from like it's going to happen. We're just like, ooh, it's like you hate it's you have no idea what you're in store for. And
Right.
it's like then maybe like unfortunately then we ramp up people thinking that it's coming like, well, here's what's next in the
Next
timeline.
week.
Right. Here's what's next in the timeline. And then when it doesn't happen, you're like, oh, but I'm like, well, and the way like I look at it is like, well, they're gonna get to it because it's
Yeah.
part of the story, like so, patience, everyone patience. But I can understand why if we're telling people, ooh, so like this is gonna be
Mhm.
crazy, and then it's like nothing happens, you're like,
And I think what also plays into it is that we know how long these seasons take. I
yes,
think if it was like, I mean, a year is still a long time, but I think it's one of those things where there has been this build up from the show and the people that have read the books, and then you don't get it, and it's like, oh,
right,
next week. It's like not even next week. Like, oh, okay, so early next year. No, not next year. Okay, fall of next year. Well, not fall of next year. Probably like summer 2026. Then it's like,
right,
wait, what?
right.
And I think that is subconsciously
Well, we're an
part of
immediacy,
the
like
anger.
we're an immediacy kind of culture now. I mean, it's
Right.
things are I I get the kind of content when I want the kind of content. I shouldn't have to wait for my content. And it's like, okay, but you're gonna have to wait. Like they do these huge epic, like
Massive productions.
right. They're all movie quality,
Movie
whether
quality episodes week to week to week.
right.
That takes time.
Exactly, with these sets and all these extras. And like, do you ever watch when they do the episode, then they talk to like the people behind, like they
Mhm.
were like they showed the one where the dragon seeds, the writers, where they were picking the writers, and how many people were fired
Yes.
for
And stuff like
the
that where you
extras.
realize you expect this quality, that type of quality takes time. And I think it's funny that I'm raging at how long I know it's going to take.
Right,
Meanwhile, even though I'm anxiously waiting for it, I am content waiting as long as it takes for Beyond the Spider-Verse. Because like I know how long this animation takes. This is
right.
top tier animation. Hubie, Punk Spider-Man, it took 3 years just to do his animation movements, and it looked incredible. Miles Morales was moving in Across the Spider-Verse like 2 frames slower than all the other Spider-Man because it was showing how he was not used to being Spider-Man. But by the end of the movie, they
Right.
sped up his drawings to be in frame with everyone else. That is insane detail. That
So this,
insane detail takes time.
yes,
So if we want these cinema type episodes
to have
8 or
quality,
10 weeks in a row, you're gonna have to wait. It just sucks that like,
we have to wait.
we've been teased.
Right. And the thing is that I love that like it's it's a lot like I mean it's all very childlike behavior because we're we're gonna complain and be like, well, I don't want to wait. But we know damn well that in 2 years, when that music hits, season
Oh,
3, episode 1, everybody will be watching it again.
yeah.
It's
No
just
matter who swears off the show, you're gonna be back, and we're not like, okay, okay. It's like the NFL and their controversies and scandals, and that is not to absolve them of their controversies and scandals, but they are so big that they have reached a point that it's like we can pretty much do whatever we want.
yeah, when you're
You're gonna be here.
right, like I think like I mean not to get off topic, but like the NFL, they say every year they list the top 100 shows of the year, and like 85 of the top 100 are NFL games, like as far as
Exactly.
like viewership. So it's like, yeah, it's the same thing. It's like and the thing is, I take it kind of maybe in an optimistic way is maybe the reason everybody kicks their feet and complains about it so much is because we do love it. It is
Right.
so good that we wouldn't be complaining if it was crap. We'd be like, oh, thank God that's over. Like, don't even want
Right.
to like nobody's itching for the second season of Secret Invasion, right? Like
You
nobody's
just
nobody's
ruined my night
clamoring
thinking about it.
nobody's clamoring for it. Nobody's like, whoa, God, like I can't believe they're
Yeah.
making me wait, or we're not going to do this at all. Like I do take that as a good sign, is that it's very
Sure.
much just kind of a childlike temper tantrum because
Yeah.
it's so good. We want it. I want it again. I want it now. I want it,
Yeah.
so yeah, I can see, like I said, I can see why people were upset at it. I think if people like yourself take a step back, think through all the dialogue and what they were trying to convey with this entire season, because we know that once that domino tips, like everything is destroyed very fast. And then it's like, okay, well, once you start losing people and dragons, you're not getting them back. Like, we're not going to
Yeah.
gain people that, like, oh, and we found another dragon. So we're like, there's a finite amount of resources here that we're going to be going through pretty quickly,
Right.
So it's like, don't wish it away so fast.
Yeah. No, I think maybe people, now that they have watched it and know what isn't coming, go back and watch the episode again. Pay
Right.
attention to the dialogue between the characters. Go and look at Crispy Cole. Go look at
Emo
Allison
Cole.
Rhaenyra, Aemond and Helena. Like all of these conversations between these characters are extremely well written, extremely well acted. Again, I'm not going to pretend like I'm not disappointed that there wasn't some blood and
Right.
guts. I wanted that,
Sure.
yes. But the episode was a good episode. The writing, the conversations, the acting. Now that you know what you're not getting from the episode, go back and watch it again.
Good point. That's what it is now that you're done like kicking and screaming because you didn't get your battle. Now go back and appreciate what was there in front of you. Like, you overlooked what was there, trying to you in your mind, you might have been rushing through that dialogue and just like,
Right.
okay, 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 but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
listen to
Okay,
the
where's the fighting?
right,
Where's the fight?
right, but like listen to the things that were like actually said between these people, like you said, like between Aemond and Helena. That was
That was deep. That was a good and I think I felt like you said with Jace and his wife, there was a lot of one-on-one conversations from characters that we have not gotten
right.
this season. Seeing Jace and what's her name
Bela.
talking and her and Bela to get it together. I don't think I think Helena saying was it worth it to Aemond was the most they've talked like all season. So when they
Right.
had that conversation, it was like, okay, when you saw Alicent and Rhaenyra on screen together, it's only the second time this season, and the last time
Right.
was phenomenal. When you saw uh Daemon and Rhaenyra, who have not seen each other since the second episode,
Right.
like
Right.
characters that have not shared the screen a lot this season
The
shared the
conversation
screen with each
between
other.
Corlys and his son.
Yes,
That
again, they had at most, and they had conversations during the season, but it was very much
surface.
very surface level vague between the two of them, where this one, the guy that had every right to boil over finally boiled over. And we got to see that. We got to
Right.
see so many good conversations in one episode. And yes, now that you've had your tantrum and you know you're not getting the fight, you probably did sit there and was like, all right, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah, yeah. All right, Helena, let's go, let's go. Now that you know you were waiting for the battle that never happened, the battle that never was. Now go back and pay attention to those conversations because that was powerful.
It was good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what they should have titled the episode.
The battle that never was.
Or hasn't
100%.
happened yet. Hasn't come yet.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that is a good place to stop, because I think we kind of aired that all out. I think we got our
Yeah.
frustrations out. I think we are trying to encourage people, hey, maybe even just go back and watch the entire season now. Knowing that knowing that this is it, that's it. Go back and look at the finer details that you might have overlooked and wishing for your Michael Bay-esque explosions and dragon fire. Go back now and look at them trying to stop what's coming, and how it's just not in and appreciate the fact that our people are trying to stop it from happening. and that it's not going to. Nothing
Yep.
that they're going to do, no, and that some people like Kristen see it happening and know. And then you've got the two queens thinking we can still maybe do this, and Kristen being the only one with kind of the insight of going, this is we're
We're
all
all
dust,
pawns.
we're all dust in the wind. Like
Yeah.
this is it. We're
Yeah. And then our boy Otto finally made an appearance.
now we gotta figure out
Where
who's
is he?
holding him.
Nobody knows.
Who's holding him captive?
That is the question
I'm
of the
gonna
week.
go with maybe because I don't know. I really
Oh,
do. I don't know. I'm gonna go with him. I would like to think that maybe he's being held at the Vale.
why though?
As kind of a bargaining chip because she's kind of wanting to see was because she didn't get the dragons she wanted. I don't know. It could be who know. I honestly don't know who's got him, but it'd be maybe Varys.
I thought Varys. I thought
Okay.
you kind of sort of, yeah, I don't know.
I can see that. I can see that. But that'll be, 2 years from now. We'll discuss that.
Yes.
So you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
They can find me at Will with 1 L underscore the underscore beast on all social media platforms.
All right, and I am Holy L, and you know where to find me. And we will be back back next week with probably the Olympic finale of the Olympics coverage. I know you're gonna pour yourself some more haterade this week and
Yes. Oh,
see if old boy gets see if he accomplishes all of it. And
I have
I
had my
knew
rant. I'm gonna back off now. Like he has earned his victory lap, no pun intended. He still has a 200 meter. I still have time to be a hater, but
you
Noah
do,
Lyles, like
you do.
you
There's
did
a
what you
lot,
set out to do.
right?
It was a lot closer. It was a good race. It was
It was,
once my temper tantrum was over, I could acknowledge that was the most exciting 10 seconds
that was
ever.
amazing. That was amazing.
Yeah.
That unbelievable. We'll discuss more about Olympics here the end of this next week because it's gonna get good this week. Like, everything's coming to an end in
Yeah.
these. I guess this week is it, right? Yeah, because Sunday's the
Yeah.
closing ceremony.
I think Sunday's the closing ceremonies.
Nice. All right. We will see you later. Bye.
All right.